I came out into a community that was not accepting at all. So rather than sort of step back, I sort of stood my ground and said, no, this has got to change. So my little bit and hundreds of other men and women that needed to stand up together, we started change.
He is a person who strongly believes in a fair society. And he was on the vanguard of helping make Vancouver an inclusive city for LGBTQ citizens.
In my teens, there were some gay relationships, but total guilt all the time. And then in 1966, I got married to a wonderful woman, thinking that marriage would change who I was and make me more part of the community. When I first came out would be in 1972 in Edmonton, and I'd only been married about 6 years, and my daughter was 4.5 at the time. We separated, and I moved out of the house. And one night I was standing on the High Level Bridge, which I don't to this day remember how I got there or why I was there. And I just by chance happened to look up the river valley, and the back porch light of the home that my Pat, that's my ex-wife's name, and daughter were living in, the house that we'd shared. The back porch light was on. It was almost like a saving moment. That one moment in my whole life was probably the most vivid moment of the point where I had to say, okay, this is me, I've got to go on from here. I moved to Vancouver in the spring of 1976, and shortly after I moved here, I met my partner, Neil, and we were together for about 8 years. And we were both sort of very out at the time, but Vancouver was far from being out at the time. Holding hands, walking down the street on the corner of Davie and Thurlow, part of the gay community, part of the core of the gay community. We were in front of a restaurant. It's still there in the corner. It was a different restaurant at the time. 4 guys were outside hanging around, and they started pushing us around like back and forth between each other and against the wall of the restaurant. A police car came by. So I flagged the car down, the police officers down, and I told them what went on. And within minutes of talking to the 4 guys, all 6 of them were laughing. And when I asked the officer's name, both officers took off their badges and the name tags and said, move on guys, or there will be trouble. I remember the first parade that we marched in. I wouldn't even call it a parade. We met at Nelson Park, and there may have been 300 people. And we walked down Thurlow towards Sunset Beach, and we couldn't get a permit. Police kept us on the sidewalk. People were harassing us, throwing stones at us, but it seemed to be a binding moment almost, just that there was only maybe 300 of us, but there was 300 of us. Whereas years before, I thought I was on my own. That was the only person. Today, what, 500,000 people watch the Pride Parade, so it's just like, I take credit, I guess, credit for not necessarily being an activist, but just being part of the movement that just started. It was something so simple, just to stand up and say, we're here and we're not going away. My daughter's been probably my biggest supporter, my strength in some ways. I remember when she was about 8 or 9, I was in Edmonton for one of her school Christmas concerts. She came and sat down beside me with another friend, and in those days I used to have earrings in here. And my daughter's little friend kept looking at me, and I knew something was going to come, and I heard a whisper to my daughter, is your dad a hippie? And my daughter said, no, he's gay. And it was just like one of those moments that reinforced that what I was doing was the right thing to do, because my daughter didn't have an issue with it. She still doesn't, and my grandkids don't either. I mean, they've grown up knowing their grandpa, or Poppy as they call me, is a gay man, and it's not an issue with him. I think what I've learned with my 70 years, and 50 of it sort of being out, and about 40 of it being active in the community, is the struggle is worth it.